Hello, welcome to another episode of Albums That Turned 20 in 2022. So this is the November episode, looking back to 2002. Again, it's going to be albums that either I was familiar with at the time. Some of these I did actually buy, and I'll mention those. Other ones, it's artists that I recognise, or albums that I just recognise from wandering around record shops at that point in time. So obviously there's an awful lot of albums that were released in November that I'm going to skip over, but that's just obviously a consequence of me looking at it through my own personal lens. I've also simplified things further still from the previous episode, just to make things a bit more snappier and to make it so that it probably doesn't really matter when you watch this particular episode time-wise, as the information won't go out of date, hopefully. So first up we have Godspeed You Black Emperor with Yankee UXO, released on the 4th of November. The genre is post-rock. This was album number 3. Now, just after this album was released, the band actually took a hiatus. At the time, it was classed as an indefinite hiatus. In the end, it turned out to be a 10-year hiatus. And that was resolved, if you like, by the release of their album 10 years later after this, and the album they released 10 years later after Yankee UXO was Hallelujah, Don't Bend, Ascend in 2012. Next up on November the 5th we have this album, which was by Johnny Cash, American 4, The Man Comes Around. Folk rock, country, Americana, Southern Gothic. This was Johnny Cash's 67th studio album, and it was the 4th in the American series of albums. And this was actually the last album to be released in his lifetime. I think by many is considered to be his finest work towards the end of his life. The album's been featured in 1001 albums you must hear before you die, and it's one of the albums in today's episode that I did actually go out and buy at the time. Cool album. It's got tons of cool covers on it. It's got a cover of Hurt, originally by Nine Inch Nails, amongst other covers. But yeah, well worth a listen if you've never listened to this particular Johnny Cash album. Symphony X, The Odyssey, 5th of November, so another 5th of November album. That's Bonfire Night in the UK. Progressive metal, power metal, neoclassical metal, album number 6. The title track on this album, I believe, is around 24 minutes long, and it's a musical interpretation of Homer's Odyssey. I think the first album to be recorded entirely at their guitarist Michael Romeo's home studio as well. Opeth's Deliverance, 12th of November. Progressive death metal, progressive rock and progressive metal. So with Opeth, probably my sweet spot listening wise was previous to this. So I think by this time I'd actually stopped buying their albums. I think this is one of their heaviest albums they've done, but still contains, a lot of the progressive elements that they became famous for, which they sort of incorporated into a more death metal sound. So yeah, definitely one of their heavier albums. But I think at that point I was still infilling a bit on their back catalogue. You know, back to, say, Orchid period, that sort of area. It was actually recorded the same time as the album Damnation, which had been released 5 months before this album. So those two albums, Damnation and Deliverance, were actually recorded back to back. So Deliverance was album number 6, Damnation was album number 5. And I believe there's quite a difference, but style-wise as well, with Damnation being a little bit more mellower and a little bit more of the progressive rock influence sound sort of dialed up. Jay-Z, The Blueprint 2, The Gift and the Curse, 12th of November, Hip Hop, album number 7. It's, as you can probably tell by the title, it's a sequel to his sixth album, The Blueprint, which came out in 2001, so a year before this. This album, I believe, debuted at number 1 in the US. I believe there's a lot of tracks on this album. Missy Elliott, Under Construction, 12th of November. Hip Hop R&B, album number 4 for Missy Elliott. And this went in at number 3 on the US Billboard 200 chart. I think it also got a Grammy Award nomination for Best Rap Album of the Year. And Album of the Year. Although I don't know if it actually ultimately received it, but it did get nominated. Amon Amarth versus the World, 18th of November, Melodic Death Metal, was album number 4 for them. It's a bit more mid-paced in this album than their earlier faster works. The thing I probably find most interesting with bands like this is you have a number of bands from multiple genres who all have a sort of Viking mythology theme. So Amon Amarth are from a sort of melodic death metal musical genre, and then you've got bands like Enslaved back in their early days who often had sort of Viking themed songs, but they were coming more from a Norwegian black metal era in terms of the music. And then you've got bands like Ensiferum who also have Viking themed songs lyric wise, but are coming from a power metal sort of musical background. So yeah, it's a sort of interesting lyrical genre which pulls down on multiple musical genres. Reverend Bizarre, in the Rectory of the Bizarre Reverend. I have this album, came out on 24th of November. I didn't buy it till a little bit later. It's actually their first album, originally released in 2002, re-released with a bonus CD titled Return to the Rectory in 2004. And without going through my CD case, I got a feeling I have that 2004 re-release. The album itself is something in the region of 70 minutes, I believe. Somewhere around that length. It's a long album. The album art, if you're interested, is based on Goya's 1798 painting, which is Sabbath. So it's actually based on that. System of a Down steal this album, 26th of November, genre is new metal. This was album number 3 for them. So if you're not familiar with System of a Down, they're an Armenian American heavy metal band where their sort of Armenian musical roots really show through in their music. Peaked at number 15 on the US Billboard. Had a pretty distinctive album cover as well, really stood out on album racks, and I can remember this is one I often saw when I was like flicking through CDs in HMV or Virgin back in the UK in the day. The Roots Phrenology, 26th of November. Interesting merging of styles on this album. You got hip hop, progressive rap, neo soul, rap rock, all sort of brought together. I don't believe this was as commercially successful as the band's previous album, Things Fall Apart. But it, sold steadily and got universal acclaim from music critics. And I had to listen to this in preparation to for this episode. And if you're not familiar with The Roots, well worth a listen to this album. And then finally, we have Sum 41. Does This Look Infected? Another album that I can remember sitting on CD racks at the time. 26th of November. Another band that have incorporated like a mixture of styles. You've got punk rock, heavy metal, pop punk, horror punk, melodic hardcore, all sort of brought together under a banner. Second album. At the time this goes out, I think it's their only album that actually featured a parental advisory label on the cover. Even though other albums by the band actually have profanity on them. And this is a concept I've never spoken about in any of these episodes actually, and I'm assuming it's still a thing. So there was actually 2 versions released of this album. There was a explicit and edited versions of this album, and my understanding was that was a thing that started because of specific problems that albums generally, and this is true of a number of different bands, but it was a way in which bands could get stocked at certain distributors, like these big companies, if you like, multinational box stores, who would effectively not stock the album in its explicit form. So there are sort of versions of all sorts of albums which have explicit content, which also exist in non-explicit edited versions as well. And I've not actually thought about that for a while. I remember, it's something I hadn't heard of before. I was aware of, certain songs being edited for radio play, like certain singles where they did a bleeped version for it, but I'd not been aware of whole albums until, I don't know when that first started, maybe I wasn't aware of it until the 2000s. So there we have it. That's the albums that turned 20 in 2022 episode, and we're looking at, or specifically from November 2002. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next episode.